Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
In Cut the Clutter today, we talk about Bangladesh and the impact our debate over NRC and CAB has had on India-Bangladesh relations. So two things happened today. One, Bangladesh's foreign minister, A.K. Abdul Momen, who was to come to Delhi for what is called as Delhi Dialogue. It's a very prestigious conference that MEA organizes, RMEA. He cancelled, saying that he's preoccupied, which obviously was interpreted as his being uncomfortable because of what's going on in parliament. And second, Bangladesh's home minister, that is Asaduzzaman Khan, who was to come to Shillong to attend what is called the Freedom Fighters Welfare Trust meeting. Why? Because 2 days from now is the Victory Day of 1971 war, the day on which Bangladesh was created 48 years ago. So he was to come for that commemoration. So once again, partly because of disturbances in Northeast India and partly because of resentment over what's happened on the CAB, NRC, he is also cancelled. Now this is problematic. Why? Because Bangladesh is India's second most important neighbor in the subcontinent. And if you look at the friendliness index, it is the most important neighbor in this subcontinent, because Pakistan, as we know, to the west, one thing you can't describe them right now or most of the time is a friendly country. But Bangladesh is a friendly country, which is very different from other countries in the region. Today, Nepalese government is hostile to India and leans towards China. Sri Lanka's new government is a work in progress. The two Rajapaksa brothers are back. They have a reputation and a track record of being very pro-China, and that space needs watching. Maldives, okay, there's been a change, and this government is not as hostile to India. In fact, this government is friendly to India. The last one was hostile, but Maldives is far away, way south, and not that important in the regional scheme of things. So in this environment, you have one country, Bangladesh, which is totally friendly to India. So friendly that this Modi government, and they need to be given credit for it, and this Bangladesh government, Sheikh Hasina Wajid government, have solved India-Bangladesh border issues, which means Bangladesh has become India's only major neighbor with which India now has settled land and maritime borders. There is an issue even with Nepal right now, as we've heard about the controversies after the new maps came out. But Bangladesh is the only country with which even the exchange of enclaves has taken place and our borders are fully settled. Besides, Bangladesh has been a partner, a very loyal and friendly partner and trustworthy partner in the fight against terror. Bangladesh has worked very strongly to crush ISI's modules in Bangladesh. Bangladesh has fought its own ISIS infestation very, very, very strongly. Bangladesh has also cleaned out India's terrorist and insurgent groups who were there, particularly Alpha. Some key Alpha leaders have actually been handed over to India by this Bangladesh government. This is a very friendly Bangladesh government. This is not a relationship that India needs to be damaging at this point of time. And this is something which should have been gamed when the government planned it. In fact, when the government planned these changes on CAB, etc., and the talk of NRC and throwing out infiltrators and persecution of Hindus, they should have had people in the MEA brief them, give them some lines to speak so as to cause the minimum possible offense to Bangladesh. But that did not happen because in the heat of the debate, particularly in parliament, things get said. We heard Amit Shah say in parliament that Hindus are being tortured in Bangladesh. Now, Bangladesh at this point is a secular country. They are very proud of being multicultural, multi-religious. They have nearly 2 crore Hindus. That is almost 10% of Bangladesh. So they resent it. And then he also said that in 1947, in Bangladesh, minority population was 22%. Today, it's only 7.8%. In 2011 to 7.8%. So what happened to the rest? Were they killed? Were they forcibly converted? Or were they pushed into India? They had to come to India. So these are tough things to say about a friendly country. And there is a history of migration until 71. After 71, there is the Assam Accord, which in any case accords citizenship on anybody who came before 1971. Now, this is hurtful for Bangladesh, but then also Rajnath Singh, the defense minister, who's normally very cautious, he, in an interview to India Today, said that Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh are theocratic Islamic states. Now, first of all, Afghanistan is far. Afghanistan government treats its minorities well. Nevertheless, there are problems there, but to call them a theocratic Islamic state at this point is not right. But to call Bangladesh that is factually very, very, very wrong, because Bangladesh started out in 1971 being a secular, socialist, democratic republic. In the middle, it lost its way when the two generals took over. Zia, both Pakistan and Bangladesh had Zias at one point of time, Zia-ur-Rahman in Bangladesh, and then H.M. Ershad. Both under martial law Islamized Bangladesh. In 1982, General H.M. Ershad declared Bangladesh to be an Islamic country. In fact, you can check out Cut the Clutter episode 212 after Ershad's death, where we talked about this. But when Sheikh Hasina came back, she got her Supreme Court to declare both martial law administrations as unconstitutional. As a result, all the laws passed by the martial law administrations were declared null and void. So Bangladesh is back to being a democratic, secular, modern republic. It is not a theocratic Islamic republic, even though it's Muslim majority. And that actually is the remarkable thing about Bangladesh that needs to be appreciated. Did we really want Bangladesh to become a Bengali-speaking Pakistan on our eastern frontiers? Can you imagine what kind of situation India would have had then? Urdu-speaking Pakistan, in fact, Urdu is a misnomer, essentially Punjabi-speaking Pakistan to the west and Bengali-speaking Pakistan to the east. So this reform in Bangladesh and the way Bangladesh has evolved is actually a great gift to India, to stability in the subcontinent, to the rest of the world, because it's a large Muslim population which is kept in a reasonably democratic, not perfect, far from perfect, so don't check them on liberalism index with Sweden, but compare them with other Muslim majority countries. It's quite a robust democracy in Bangladesh. So that is something that you should not be laughing at. The other thing is this whole idea, and I'll give you some figures now, so sort of fasten seat belts, some figures to tell you that this idea that India is a super first world country, we've conquered the world, right? And Bangladesh is this really giza peda, mara gira, some seventh world country. And so all the Bangladeshis want to leave Bangladesh and come into India. This is a complete fallacy. So I will quote figures to you to show you that on many key indicators, Bangladesh is actually ahead of India right now. Beginning with GDP growth rate, Bangladesh's growth rate at this point is 8.1, India is 4.5, right? And even if India finishes this year at 5, which is optimistic, Bangladesh will finish upwards of 8. And this has not happened suddenly. Bangladesh's growth rate has been rising. And many other indicators also. So this idea that many Bangladeshis constantly want to leave their country and come to India is wrong. In fact, Bangladesh High Commissioner said this in an interview to The Hindu the other day, that people of my country, if they want to leave, would rather jump in the ocean and swim to Italy. Italy seems to be the favored destination that Bangladeshis have in Europe. In fact, if you go to Italy, if you go to the Vatican also, you find lots of Bangladeshis selling things on the street there. Then come to India, he said. Because why should they come to India? Where is the difference? What is the benefit they get in India? So to think that Bangladeshis want to leave and come to India is wrong. And I will now show you figures to prove why that is the case. If you look at Bangladesh's economy, GDP, it is 1/10 of India's. But Bangladesh's population is also 1/8 of India's. Per capita GDP in India is a little bit higher than Bangladesh. It's about 2,100. Bangladesh is exactly $1,788. So India is about, say, 20% ahead of Bangladesh right now. But at this point, at these growth rates, the gap is closing. But Bangladesh's 1,788 per capita income is much higher than Assam's 1,100. So why would Bangladeshis leave their country and come to Assam? And it is about the same as West Bengal. So once again, like water finds its level, economic logic, immigration finds its level based on economics. So economics is the water of immigration. So there is no imbalance there to create some kind of a flow of population from Bangladesh into India. And once again, since all of us love Pakistan so much, you can check Pakistan's per capita income at this point is just about 1400 crores. So Bangladesh has left $1,400. So Bangladesh has left Pakistan way behind. In 1971, it was seen as the basket case, and West Pakistan was bustling. It's a great success story. Then you go ahead and you can look at more things. Life expectancy. India is 69, Bangladesh is 72.5. Remember, Pakistan is 67. Left behind, way behind Bangladesh. Female labor participation. India 27.2%, Bangladesh 33%. So that defies one more of these Islamist stereotypes that women's status in Islamic countries or countries with large Islamic populations is lower. So let me come to birth rates. India has taken great strides in controlling or reducing its birth rate. So India now has 20.2 babies born per 1,000 women in a year. What does Bangladesh have? It has 18. So it's 10 percentage points lower than India's. Look at Pakistan, because we make comparisons. Pakistan at this point is 29.8. So it is almost 60-70% higher than Bangladesh. So Bangladesh is raced way ahead in this area. Look at infant mortality. That's even more striking. Bangladesh is 31.7 per 1,000 live births. That means every 1,000 babies delivered live, 31.7 die. Say about 32 die. For India, the number is 41. India has improved a great deal, but it is still much worse than Bangladesh's. What is Pakistan? Again, the country that was much richer and much more powerful, the population that was much more advanced than Bangladesh's, than East Pakistan's. Pakistan is 53.86%, way behind Bangladesh. It's almost now getting to be, the way Bangladesh is going soon, Pakistan will be twice as much as Bangladesh. These are not good figures. These are very embarrassing figures. Then you go on to total fertility rate. In 1960, let's go back 60 years. So we take no chances. If you go back to 1960, Pakistan's fertility rate, that is number of babies produced per woman in a lifetime, was 6.6. 6.6 babies were produced by an average woman in Pakistan in a lifetime. It was the same for East Pakistan as well, 6.6. For India, it was 5.9, a bit lower, but still quite high. See what progress has each country made in 60 years. In 60 years, India has come from 5.9 to 2.33. Almost one-third, but not quite one-third, but quite impressive. Bangladesh has come from 6.6 to 2.1. That is less than one-third. It is remarkable that one part of a country which had 6.6 had this much. And what has the other part done? What has West Pakistan done? West Pakistan has also made progress, but it has come to 3.48%. That is 1.5 times higher than Bangladesh. So this is the kind of situation that we are talking about. Even on global hunger index, India is 102, Bangladesh is 88. We had spoken about in a hunger index in Cut the Clutter. It's more about nutrition than hunger, but still, even in nutrition, Bangladesh is much higher than India. Then the final point, the population growth rate. Because the impression is that crores of people have left Bangladesh and come into India. And as a consequence, India's population has gone up and there is a big economic burden on India, while Bangladesh has offloaded it on us. Now look at population growth rates in the two countries. And I am now looking at every decade, going back 4 decades. So we take no chances. And these are World Bank figures. So these are not cooked up figures. 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010, and 2018 estimates. 1980, Bangladesh's population growth rate is 2.68%, high. India is 2.31%, so higher than India, not that much higher, but higher than India. 1990, both countries decline, population growth rate. India is 2.07, Bangladesh is 2.43, so still considerably higher than India. So it's not as if people of Bangladesh are leaving in droves and crores and coming to India, their population would not be growing, their population would be declining or staying the same as India. 2000, Bangladesh's growth rate falls heavily. population growth rate is 1.95, India is 1.76. 2010 is a remarkable fall in Bangladesh, 1.12, India is 1.35. And if you look at this point, both countries have a net population growth rate. That is, when you net number of human beings born with number of human beings who died, it's exactly 1, with some minor difference at the fourth point after the decimal, which really doesn't count. So Bangladesh actually is a success story in our neighborhood. It's not a country that India should be talking lightly about for 3 reasons. One, because it has made such a big progress coming out of such violence and such deprivation and such injustice. It's also second, it's also a country, a Muslim majority country, which started out being secular, slipped into Islamization for a good 10 years, but bounced right back, and is now back to being a secular democratic country. Not a perfect democracy, but a secular democratic country. But finally, most of all, we should respect Bangladesh, not talk loosely about it, and value our relationship with Bangladesh for the simple reason that it's our most important, largest friend in the subcontinent. And it's very important to remember, China is dying to patronize Bangladesh. China is already selling a lot of weapons to Bangladesh. It would try to sell more. It will try to win over Bangladesh from India, and Bangladesh can't afford to do it. So before I go away, I will tell you an old colloquialism, or maybe Punjabi wisdom, which is that you light a little stove in Kabul and suddenly realize that Multan has caught fire. In Punjabi, they say, Kabul kujja chadya, aag lagi Multan, for my Punjabi listeners. In English, we call it the expression we used in the very beginning of this Karta Clutter, the theory of unintended consequences. So don't do things in the heat of the moment. Don't say things in the heat of the moment that cost you a very vital relationship, and that ends up offending your most valuable friend.